Hey, what's up? Kalen here. Welcome to live stream number 57. Hope you're having a great day today, Monday, November 25th. And let's jump into it. First topic of the day, something I've been thinking about is what I'm calling atomic pieces of work. So one of the things that I've had trouble with in the past when hiring is having job roles that are too complicated and that involve too many moving parts, and you kind of want somebody to come in and just kind of figure it all out, and that can be really hard to do right. And something I've been having some really great success with lately with building out my content team is just having really like atomic pieces of work where, for example, the video editor edits a piece of video, the writer writes an article, and they have the topic and they have sort of templates they're working off of. And so I've just been really happy with the work they've been putting out, and there still is a lot of creativity that goes into each piece of work, but the boundaries are clear enough that, it's really straightforward. And I'm jumping back in on Commerce Hero, and I'm getting back into the weeds a little bit here, and trying to tighten up a lot of processes and things like that. And one of the things I'm thinking about is how to make if I'm going to hand work off to other people, how to make those pieces of work nice and atomic, nice and clean pieces of work. So even, for example, from a support perspective, I'm trying to make sure that every time there's a support question that's asked, we have a doc in the system that responds to that question. So then, the support function can sort of transform into really just mapping docs to support tickets. And that seems like a much more straightforward approach to handing off support, which can be complicated. Handing off support can be a tricky thing to do. So yeah, that's just something I've been thinking about. I think that there's something really interesting in there in creating pieces of work that are atomic, that are really well defined, and I think within that context you can get some really great work done. Okay, next up. So this was a tweet that I loved here from Ken Wallace. I've always wanted to create a place where folks could reply to the podcast they were listening to, not as text though, as audio clips. You pause the show you're listening to, go to the site or app, record your thoughts, then resume. Voxer, but for podcasts. And he's quoting a tweet where he says, here I am again, sitting in a red light, yelling at something I disagreed with on the podcast episode I'm listening to. Does anyone else do this? Yes, I do. And, it's funny. It's kind of the same dynamics as like when you were yelling at the TV screen 10, 20 years ago before there was like Twitter, and then Twitter kind of solves that. Like anytime you're yelling at something, you're like yelling into the void, there's an opportunity to solve that problem, right? And like, with podcasts, of course, you can just go and fire off a tweet. And that definitely does happen with podcasts, and that's a good way to interact. But I do think something that is sort of a pure audio format, because when you're listening to podcasts, when you're listening to audio, you could be walking the dog, you could be doing the dishes, whatever random thing. So a lot of times your hands aren't free. And I think this would be a really interesting thing to look at. And one way we might want to approach building this is with my no code hat on. I need to get a hat that says, I literally need to write this down because I need a hat that says no code. Just going to write this down. So with my no code hat on, I am thinking like this could maybe be built with Glide, which is a platform for building mobile apps. And I don't know too much. I haven't played with it yet, but it might be interesting to experiment with that, try to get a proof of concept off the ground. I think it would be awesome if this could be a totally hands-free solution, because so much of audio is hands-free. And so if there's a way that you could either through a Google Voice, a voice assistant type deal, or a headphones type deal, if it could bring you right into this app where you could share feedback and it could somehow know where you are in what podcast at what time code, that would be absolutely magical. And it might be impossible to do some of those things. I'm not sure. Those are some of the things why, those are some of the reasons why this type of functionality would make so much sense as a first party feature to a podcast client. But as Ken pointed out, it's going to be hard to get things like this on the roadmap for these big podcast clients like Spotify and all these guys. So building out something independent sounds really handy. And I'd love to see that. So just putting this out into the universe, just echoing what Ken put out into the universe here. And it'd be cool to see that. All right, next up. Okay, so a little update on my Commerce Hero Airtable stuff. I think this view is going to be blank because I made a change. Oh, you're logged in somewhere else? Okay, all right. Whatever. So I'll just give a quick update. So I have been diving in and trying to build out Commerce Hero, which is currently a Laravel app, on Airtable and sort of no-code platforms. So it's been a cool. Oh, that's funny. My when I said Google Assistant, it pulled up my Google Assistant and put a whole bunch of text into there. So I've been jumping into this the past few days, and it's been a good challenge. There's a lot of things that I've been, I really haven't been iterating on Commerce Hero as much as I like to, and there's just a lot of stuff I know needs to be improved. And moving over to Airtable gives me the opportunity to iterate quickly on things, so I'm excited about that. But I'm moving things over very iteratively, so I'm not just moving the entire system over, and I'm not sure what exactly is going to work in there, what's not going to work. For example, Airtable has this great shared view functionality, which where I can share, for example, a view of open jobs or whatever, and then all of the filters are easily filterable, so people can filter on salary and location and type of company, agency versus merchant versus da-da-da-da. So it's kind of perfect, but the one missing thing it does not have is the ability to filter out data for specific users. So most likely going to have to build a custom front end on top of Airtable, with Airtable being the data source and being the management layer for myself and the Commerce Hero team to manage stuff, which is still super helpful. And so that's one snag I'm running into. Also, oh, by the way, you probably see my glasses here. I've got this I'm trying to figure out how to not make a dent in my nose with these things. So we put this white little it's one of those things that you put underneath furniture to get it to not scratch the floor. So anyways, yeah, so that's been fun. I'm diving into that and trying to figure things out. Another limitation with Airtable is that there's a primary field on each record, which for example, on the jobs record, I used to have that show the company name and the job type. However, that name field is not optional in a shared view. It has to show up in the shared view. So because I need to anonymize jobs and candidates, I had to change that primary field to something else that was an anonymized version, which makes internal management a little more complicated. So running into some of those challenges, but in general, what I really love about Airtable is I can really quickly tweak workflows. So for example, I already implemented functionality for sending match updates to multiple clients, whereas previously only one client user record could be mapped to receive match updates. I can do the same thing really easily for billing updates. Also, I'm creating workflows for when a new job or a new candidate comes into the system. We do social media promotion, we do connecting, we do clarification of job details, things like that. So a lot of these workflows I'm able to iterate on really quickly, which has been which is cool. So I just have to figure out how to layer on like a permissions model on top of that, and then I'll be golden. So that's been fun. Going to be real busy with that the remainder of this week. What is this icon? Oh, cool. That's handy. Yeah, so a little update on that. And last up, Cybertruck. The Cybertruck from Tesla. Man, I just got to say, I got to comment. I got to give my 2 cents on this one. This truck is, I think this has to be the most innovative vehicle design. It possibly, we can't say ever, because like the first vehicle that was created was pretty innovative. But as far as vehicle design goes, this has to be the most innovative one, in at least the most unique design in like the last 50 years, 70 years. It's a completely different type of thing. A lot of people think looks dumb. Other people, it's very polarizing. Some people think it looks dumb. Some people think it looks awesome. I think it looks kind of awesome. And, there's a lot of, there's some interesting fundamental innovations in truck design, that Elon Musk talked about, namely that this whole exoskeleton thing, where instead of most of the weight being in sort of the, whatever it's called, the body, the bed of the truck, they transformed that and put most of the weight into the body, what they call the exoskeleton. So they have this really hard type of steel, which is the reason why, which kind of gave them a design constraint, which is why there aren't a lot of curves, because that steel is so strong that it's actually hard to bend it with whatever presses, what do they call the stamps, whatever presses they use. So it was an interesting constraint, which led to this really unique design, which is kind of cool. And so it's not just the design for the sake of a design. It's a really innovative materials that they're using, which makes sense for a truck. You want your truck to be, kind of tough. And so it's super interesting. I love everything that Tesla does, and I got to get on this train here pretty soon. But yeah, it has amazing specs as far as like towing capacity and 0 to 60, all that kind of stuff. And just looks so futuristic. It's just awesome. So anyways, that's that. That's all I got for you today. I'm going to call it a wrap here and get back to some work. Hope you have a fantastic Monday.